Hi, I'm John Kursky, and in this video, we're going to talk about data flows, and more specifically, if you see this issue in Power Query Lint, how to avoid missing data in your data flows. Now, before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on all the new rules and new features we'll be releasing in the coming weeks. And with that, let's take a look at the screen up here. I've got a Power Query screen here, Power Query Online editor, that is utilizing Dataflows Gen 1 in the Power BI service. And often what I've seen is folks are importing data either from Excel files or SharePoint lists, and when you go to import that data, often what you'll do is you'll pick the columns that you want to save, treat it very similar to how you're running in Power BI Desktop, hit remove other columns, and then hit save and close. Now you may have noticed on that top right there, there were several steps that were added to the editor. And you can actually go back and you'll see that there is this 2 steps. I didn't add those. Power Query Online does that. And the risk you run into is if I was to copy this code, put it into Power Query Lint, you're going to see this issue. Explicitly set column types in data flows to prevent nulls. Now, what does this mean? Well, Power Query Online and Dataflows Gen 1 more specifically only supports certain data types. And so when the data types that Power Query Online sees before it saves is not in the supported range or hasn't been explicitly set, like the any, it will automatically change that to a string and then remove the errors that it has. So if you had like a list or a record, which is very common in a SharePoint list, it will convert it to a string, that string has errored, and then it will nullify that column. And a lot of the times what I've seen when we're reviewing code as part of my work and my team's work is this happens very often with complex data types in SharePoint lists and with other API calls, because maybe the first 1,000 records doesn't have a value in it, and you don't see that you need to expand that data. So it's important to understand your data, but it's also important to explicitly set the type of that data. And what do I mean by that? Well, if I go back to Power Query, I want to get rid of these steps. Those are a sign that there's an issue with my data. And in this case, I've got an ABC123. That's usually a sign, oh, I didn't explicitly set the type. Well, I know that's a person column, but you'll notice that it's all nulls. Well, part of that reason is on the column profiling, data flows only look at the first 1,000 records, so you don't necessarily see those records. So often in situations in which I'm talking to folks about making sure that you explicitly set column types, it could be that the newer data has the content you're looking for. I see this all the time. SharePoint lists get set up. They start with a couple columns, then new columns are added, and that data starts showing up for the new records that are getting inserted. So maybe what you want to do is import the data and do a quick sort temporarily. So in this case, I'll sort descending. Now you pay a performance penalty on this, but you only want to do this while you're doing this in development. And you notice that now I've got the expand feature. And now I can do that expansion, expand it where I want to see maybe just the email address. And I can expand it again for the lookup, just get the lookup value. And then I want to make sure I set these explicitly to the types that I want. And I'll go back up and I'll even get rid of that sorted feature. And now across the board here, I also didn't explicitly set last name, so I need to do that. So now I've got all the records have an explicit data type. And if I go to save it, you notice if you were really quick, you notice it didn't add those steps, but I'm going to go back just to show you. It didn't add that the transform column type and the replace errors. And when I copy this code, clear this out, put it back in Power Query Lint, the potential issue is now gone. So I hope you learned something. Make sure that when you're working in Dataflows that you are explicitly setting the types to avoid having data nullified or removed altogether. So with that, thank you for your time and appreciate you watching.